Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got some special guests in the building.
Yes, indeed.
The founders of the largest black woman-owned wine company in the U.S. We have the McBride sisters. Welcome, ladies.
Thank
And
you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Robin and Andrea.
That's right.
Y'all have such
Andrea.
Y'all have such an interesting story. Y'all didn't even grow up together?
We didn't. We grew up in different countries.
Wow.
Well, break that down.
How does that happen, right?
Yeah.
So we were both born in L.A., in California. Andrea grew up in New Zealand, and I grew up the coast in Monterey in California. So we have the same dad, but we have two different moms, and neither one of us had a relationship with our dad. So we didn't know about each other. So Andrea's mom was originally from New Zealand, and she grew up in her mom's home country, and I grew up with my mom. Neither one of us had any other brothers or sisters, so we thought we were only children growing up. And we didn't find out about each other until later in life. I was 25, Andrea was 16, and our dad was sick. He was terminally ill, so he asked his family to please find both of his daughters. He didn't know where we were. And this was back in the 90s, so it took quite a long time, but they finally found both of us, and we got the chance to meet actually here in New York.
Yeah.
Wow. For the first time.
Wow, we were just having that conversation this morning about half siblings, and like sometimes you have a relationship with them and sometimes you don't. Yeah. I got two half sisters that I didn't really have a relationship with growing up.
For us, it was like an instant bond.
Yeah.
When we first met, once you kind of get past all like the shock and hugging and tears and everything, it was like, what was it like where you grew up? And we both grew up in these small, rural,
very small,
like world-class winemaking regions, and independent of each other, we wanted to be winemakers. So that was kind of the thing that we bonded over when we first met.
I saw your story when you guys met in LaGuardia.
We did.
You saw each other for the first time. So what was that feeling like? Because you look like sisters already anyway.
Yeah.
So tell me, how overcome with emotion were you?
Well, it's really crazy because, again, this was like in the 90s, right? So it's like there was no Facebook, there was no Google, there was none of that. And so
like you couldn't even like send a picture on text, right?
Yeah, you couldn't even text pictures, right? And so the way that us coming together happened was really quick for me, right? So it was basically like a day from the time that I found out I had a sister and I was able to fly here to meet her for the first time. So we had no idea what we looked like, we're both biracial, but I didn't know if she was or not. I didn't know, I had no idea what she was going to look like. And so she was already here in New York with some of our dad's family, and I flew up. I was living in Atlanta at the time and flew up. And this was before 9/11 too. So they were able to wait in the gate at the airport for me, but it's like, going,
that? You to the gate.
You could just be right there.
Yeah. You can't do that no more.
You can't do that anymore. So, but, getting off the plane, it's like, into LaGuardia, like, thousands of people. I don't know who I'm looking for, but part of the story is when I got off the plane and I was pretty freaked out. I was kind of scared because I didn't know who I was going to meet. I didn't know who these people were. But kind of talking myself through, okay, get ready. This is going to be like a life-changing event. And walking down the jetway, I saw myself in a reflection in a mirror at the end of the jetway as I'm walking, but then I realized that the reflection wasn't moving as I was walking and that I was seeing my sister for the first time, and that we did look like sisters, obviously.
That down for a movie scene. That's a movie scene right there.
Yeah. So obviously we did recognize each other right away as soon as we saw each other. And people always ask us, what do we say? Which was nothing. We didn't say anything. Because first of all, what do you say? I don't know what you say, like, nice to meet you. I don't know what we should have said, but we didn't say anything. We just saw each other. And we hugged and we cried and we touched each other's hair. And
then after like 3 or 4 minutes, I was like, "You're Robin, right?"
Yeah. I was like, wait, we're on the right person. You got the right one,
and did y'all
right?
stay with each other at that time, or did y'all go back in separate ways? And how did that happen?
Well, she was still living in New Zealand.
Yeah, I was still in high school. Yeah. So I was, we got to hang out for a couple of weeks. And then like when we met at the time, my mom passed away when I was young, and our dad had passed away, and I was living in foster care. So when I met her, it was like big deal. And growing up, I was good at athletics. So at the same time, I was being recruited by most major universities in the United States. So I was like,
what sport?
track and field and
Track and
volleyball.
field.
And so I was like, this is my vehicle to get back to the U.S. and be close to my sister. So it was just 2 weeks, and then it was like a lot of phone calls and writing letters. And then
it really was the 90s. We're sending letters all the way to New Zealand, waiting weeks to get there.
Did you spray perfume on them or something?
I didn't spray perfume, no.
That'd be
that'd be kind of weird.
That's a sister thing to do. I think that's like a romantic thing to do.
How did y'all get
We
into
weren't
the
being
wine-
romantic with each other.
How did y'all get into the wine business?
And both of y'all were into it individually? That's like some outlier shit.
Yeah, well,
like-
because we both grew up in places that make wine, right? So we grew up with vineyards, in the background. There's winemaking families all around us. So it was kind of part of like the places that we grew up. So we figured, what are the chances that both of us grew up in places that have that similar background on the opposite side of the world from each other? And then we meet each other and find that out. We thought that was probably a sign of some sort for us to think about that.
And then when I came back for university, Robin had moved back to Monterey, and I was in Southern California. And like when you drive up that coast halfway, it's just all Central Coast wine country. So we would just like meet halfway and just found ourselves like getting to know each other as women and sisters, but then just kind of talking about our dreams as our bond grew. And then we would just kind of, we would be driving and dreaming and just talking about like, it would be so dope if we started our own wine company. Like, what would that look like? How we do it? And then we just kept on talking about it to, one day we were like, why don't we do it? What's stopping us? And we have two pretty big problems. One is like we had no money in the wine industry.
That'd be a pretty problem. That's a major problem.
in wine business, yeah.
And we didn't know how to make wine.
Also that.
That's another big problem.
That's another problem.
So how did y'all learn both, and how did y'all raise capital?
Well, for us, it's like we always tell people, it's like everything you need to know on the planet, the answer is on the internet for free.
Okay.
So like we just started to look up like, how do we do it? And we figured out that the best place would be to learn the business of wine first. And we were able to get a federal importer's license. And at the time, it was $1,800. And we could...
$1,895. Probably all the money we had.
How much is that now? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't even know, to tell you the truth. But it took us a little bit to scrape that together to get ourselves licensed back then.
And then what we did was we went down to New Zealand and found a whole bunch of small family growers and basically said, we can help like build your brand in California, bring your wines into the U.S., and at the same time, we'll come down every year for harvest and you teach us how to make wine. So we were learning the business of wine while also, learning our passion and becoming makers. And we did that from 2005 until 2009. We made our first wine together, and then we launched our company.
So we
together.
actually started. She was still in her junior year in college when we started the importing business.
Yeah, and then launched the company in 2010. And your question about like how do we raise money? I know y'all have seen the statistics about Black women.
Nobody
raising
was
money.
breaking down the doors to give money to a couple of Black women in the wine business who had no money and no experience. That didn't happen. So we from that first $1,895, we built our business for the next 14 years off of the selling one case of wine. We bought another case of wine. So we just had to build it on our own success for a very long time.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't you have to have your own vineyard?
You do not.
No.
Okay.
No.
So most like in the wine industry, like, most big like wineries and brands, you contract with grape growers. So you have long-term leases. And that's the way everybody does it.
So on their lands, you purchase them at harvest and make your wine.
This is such.
I didn't know the whole story, but I was in this. So I always go to this Black-owned liquor store here in Brooklyn. It's called Eclectic Wines and Liquor, and so they had this front and center, and I just liked the name of it. Like I saw the Black Girl Magic, and then I was like, let me pick this up, and then I posted it actually in my Instagram stories, just because I thought it was a beautiful bottle and I like the Black Girl Magic. And then everybody started hitting me like, oh, that's the McBride sisters. So that's when I went and I looked at the whole story behind the wine, just because it's not that often that you would see something called a Black Girl Magic wine
right
in the store.
Right.
And I mean, for us, like, you know, when we were first dreaming up our company, there were a couple things that were super obvious. You know, when you think about like a successful person in the wine industry, like, you know, in the 2000s, you're probably not thinking about two young black women, right? You're thinking about like an older sort of gray-haired
young man with a mustache,
yeah, some boots and a dog.
And we felt like that, like, wine was, in the U.S. at least, wasn't accessible to everybody. It felt like it was super class-based. People were made to feel sort of like insecure if you don't know about it. Like you can't be sort of drinking it and enjoying it. Yeah. And then we had the ability to do what no other winery can do in the world, which is grow sustainable premium grapes in two different hemispheres that's authentic to us and our story. So we can provide people with this massive spectrum of flavor. Like on Monday night, we can take you down to New Zealand. On Tuesday night, we can bring you back to the Central Coast of California. And most important to us, and I think different to us getting to this business, was we wanted to make it accessible to everybody. So for the most part, like all of our complete range, all like 16 wines, you know, are under $30. The majority are under $20. And they all have 90 plus scores, 90 plus point scores, which, you know, in the wine industry, like anything above 90 points is super elite. So like our whole ethos from day one has been to just transform the wine industry, to lead by example, and to cultivate community.
So break that down for a lot of people out there that drink wine. A lot of people don't know how to pick a wine. You go into a store and there's a zillion wine bottles there. They don't know if it should be a red or white, or if it should be a sparkling, and how much they should pay. So what should somebody look like, and what's a good bottle of wine besides yourself? Like, what makes your wine a good bottle of wine?
What makes our wine a good bottle of wine? Well, let me start by saying this. If people want to learn about wine, like that specific sort of like situation, we created a wine school.
That's dope.
Yeah. It's called McBride Certified. And we're big believers of the thousands of wines around the world. They all fit into 9 styles. So if you learn these 9 styles, you'll be super empowered on your journey. So we would encourage people.
It's free.
Yeah.
No, people need it because, you know, people don't know what wine glass they should use. You know, I see people, if they don't know how to hold the wine glass, if they should be smelling, if they should be twirling. Like, people don't know. So break that down. Get them out to school.
And what do you pair with what when you talk about meals? Like, what type of wine are you supposed to pair with different things?
Well, like for us, just in general on the wine industry side of things and the way we approach wine, like our motto is like break the rules, drink the wine. So we're always just like whatever you like that's the place you're at on your journey, and just like embrace it. And then for the most part now, like when you go into a store, wines that are between, I would say, like $16 and $22, $23, $24, it's not going to be a poorly made wine.
You're going to get a solid wine at that price.
So $16 wine's not going to give me a headache.
No.
Okay.
Well, any wine will give you a headache if you drink too much.
Yeah.
So drink in moderation.
Right. Maybe a $6 bottle. Like.
Okay. All right. Just asking.
But what we also did too with these 9 styles is that because, you know, wine information can be a lot. And so we paired each style with like an iconic musician. So it makes it really easy to kind of remember. Like that lesson, we take you through videos, we taste, we tell you what food goes with that wine, what stemware, all that stuff.
But the point is that like you can drink what you like. You can try anything that you want. There doesn't like wine as a culture, as an industry, has set it up so that people feel like it's very easy to do the wrong thing. Like you're doing something wrong. People feel like
Seems bougie, and a lot of people don't want to test it out because you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly right. And it's like, you know, you don't have to do that, which is our point. We're like, we show you all these different things that you can do. You can try, you know, any wine with any food, find out if you like it together. There's some things that will tell you certain things will pair better together, probably, like based on chemistry. But you might like something that's not a recommended pairing because you like, you know, whatever it might be, Sauvignon Blanc and who knows what, salad, like whatever it is.
But we love sparkling wine and fried chicken.
And fried anything.
And fried chicken.
Yeah.
fried anything.
Yeah.
That sounds good. That sounds good right now.
Right?
Is this the same as the Wine 101 course on Facebook that y'all have?
Yeah. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
So you can go to McBride Sisters on Facebook, and there's 8 modules, and it'll take you through it. And
there's quizzes, so you can get McBride certified, like after each one. But it's all of this basic stuff. It's all the enough information so that you can just feel confident to try different
you'll
wines.
Be a pro. Once you like go through this, you'll be a pro and just be able to like, somebody hands you the wine list at like, a restaurant, and you have to order for the group, you're not like sweating like, oh God, I don't want to look stupid. Or,
I'm doing
you don't get stress sweat anymore. You can make an informed decision.
So are you both what is it called? The sommelier?
No, we're not.
I learned that from the movie Uncorked. Did you watch that movie Uncorked?
We did.
Yeah,
we did. That movie was exciting for us. We don't get wine movies very much, so that was an exciting one for us. But we are not sommeliers. Sommeliers is certification that you get really for service. So
and restaurants.
Yeah, so if you're going to work in restaurants and some wineries, you can go through and get that certification. For us on the business and the producing side, we wouldn't get that. But yeah, there's been a lot of attention around sommeliers from the movies that have come out.
I love the business of the wine, but I'm still intrigued on why two young women from two different places, even though y'all lived around vineyards, like what inspired y'all to gravitate towards wine?
Well, wine is this like, to get that wine in the bottle is like a community. It's like a village of people. And like, you have people that are out in the elements. Farming is hard. And taking care of these little berries like 10 months out of the year obsessively, right? And then transitioning them into like this, magical beverage in your glass. And then it's always usually like with food and people always gathering. And so for us who were, only children or didn't come from family, like you could create a family with wine, and it didn't need to be like your blood family, the family you choose. And I think that's what we were attracted to. It was always like, wine was always like, usually no drama, and like, people eating and hanging out and having a good time.
When did you have your first glass? Tell the truth.
I was young.
You was like in your teenage years?
Well, I mean, probably before that. But like, so
probably before that.
No, for real. Because
she's being responsible, right?
Yeah. No, but look though, because her mom, like she lost her mom when she was young, but her mother's brother was a grape grower in New Zealand, so he grew grapes for the wine industry. So she calls it child labor. So she actually had to, work in the vineyards a little bit when she was little. So she was
a bit.
Yeah. Wow. Well, okay, for a period of time. But so she was exposed to wine, as a product of growing the grapes
from a farming standpoint.
On that point.
I know a lot of Italian families that when they have meals, their teens drink wine. Actually,
very European. It's just the U.S. that's weird about it. Like in other countries, children have. Yeah, well, okay.
My dad was letting me sip the Budweiser.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let you sip beer?
Well, first of all, my dad drank Heineken as a kid. But
he let you sip it?
Really?
I like it. That's one time.
Well, you still have your real beard if you did.
Oh, my
Oh,
God.
my goodness.
Now, what's your relationship with D'Angelo?
What about it?
He said, what's the relationship?
Oh, what's the relationship?
She's like, what about it? Wow.
Well, we... Is there more?
There's not more.
I'm married to
tell me
There's not more.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She's married. There's no kind of relationship.
No, I'm sorry. I heard wrong. But no, we, on the last verses, there was a beautiful display of McBride Sisters wines. And, during Lady, he was giving us a lot of shout outs.
I know. I was like dying a little bit. I died like twice.
Times.
I was like, did he just sing our brand into Lady?
The first album I ever bought with my own money was D'Angelo Brown Sugar.
Wow.
So I would I died 1,000 times the whole night every time he said
it was
McBride
crazy.
Sisters.
I know sales shot up
Was
after
it
that.
sponsorship?
Oh,
Was it a sponsorship endorsement, or he just bought the wine himself? How did that work?
So our wines are available, all across the U.S. and Target is one of our fantastic retailers that carries our portfolio, and they have an initiative called Black Beyond Measure, which is really like highlighting and supporting Black-owned businesses. So they had an opportunity to participate, and they chose us as the brand to be involved.
That's great.
Yeah.
So shout out to Target.
Yeah.
You say sales shot up after
how
that?
has it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy.
I
mean, like, we are the largest Black-owned wine company, like, in the U.S. and the world, but we're also in the top 1% all wineries in the United States in terms of size and scale.
In terms of size, yeah.
How is it being Black women in this business? Because as we know, like you said, for a woman, Black-owned business, what has that been like for you guys? Have you faced a lot of obstacles because of it?
Yeah, it's great now.
On the other side of it.
Yeah, it's great to be in this space now. I mean, we definitely had, additional challenges when we started in the business. That really wasn't so much on the consumer side. It was the business side where, they looked at us like there's no way, how could you two possibly know about wine, or how could you know how to run a wine business, or
because we were young, and we're Black.
We were young and we're Black and we're women. And none of our parents were, owned a winery or whatever. So like for many years, we just constantly were faced with just, a lack of credibility. When we came into the room, it was like, where's your boss? It's like, no, we own the company. And the people are straight up like, how? Or tell us, no one's really going to trust, a wine made by Black women. People, we don't think consumers are going to buy it because they've never seen, Black women that make wine before. So it was just, for us, it was this constant having to try to convince people of like our worth in the room, or our worthiness as producers, or the quality of our wines. And, but it's cool. It's all good. Like, we were up for the challenge. So, and we've been doing this for 15 years, 16 years. So.
And honestly, it just forced us to be great and greater than everybody else.
Yeah.
And then I think too, like, when we like established our company, like we realized that what we were doing was bigger than us, that like every other person of color that was in the industry beside us and the people who were coming behind us were going to be judged by our success. And so like we have no option to fail,
but to be great.
But to be great, so that we could never be used as the example of like, oh, that didn't work. Oh, I'm not going to fund that company. Oh, I'm not going to put you on the shelf. It's not going to turn.
Right. And we
how many people have doubled back from since then that doubted you in the beginning? How many people have doubled back? Like, let's get down. How can we help?
No, the numbers are great.
Are great.
Yeah. And some of our best accounts and some of our best customers are those same people that were very skeptical. And, it took years for us to break into those spaces. But, they're allies now.
Yeah.
I love the Unapologetically Black name, because I'm sure there's people that were saying, you can't name it Black Girl Magic, you're selling wine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, our industry's crazy as hell. But like we even like when we were trying to like bring it out and launch it, we work in a super highly regulated industry, and trying to get distributors to sell it was really hard,
Just because of the name.
Because of the name.
Because of the name.
Yeah.
And even
we were told that might offend some people.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's funny because that's why I bought it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, we made
it's a celebration.
Yeah,
who's offended by celebrating?
And like for us, like Black Girl Magic, it's like the best grapes from our vineyards go into the Black Girl Magic program. It's exceptional wine for exceptional women. We're paying homage, like to the women in our family, our community. And just because the wine industry has ignored Black people in general when it comes to drinking wine, and so we wanted to be unapologetic about it. Like this, we made this for you, and we want to be here.
And those who support you and celebrating you as well. Yeah,
and we want to be here for every
That's why I had to Google it. Like, it's better not be some white women.
No, but you know what? People do that.
So many people
do that a lot.
ask.
They always hit us up like, is this Black owned before I buy it? Is this Black owned? And we're like, it is. We promise.
How do you store wine? Because I notice, some people store wine, it has to be temperature controlled. But when you go to a liquor store, it's just in the rack. Like I'm looking at it now, it's just sit up. So how are you supposed to store wine? Does it really matter? Or
It does. So you absolutely want to make sure that your wine never gets warm. It will turn in the bottle, right? So it's like room temperature or cooler, or like cellar temperature, which is like 55 to 68 degrees. Like keep it in that range and the wine is fine. If you have a wine that you're going to keep around for a long time, you actually want to like store it laying down so that the wine keeps the cork moist, which some wines are meant to age. But other than that, the real key is just don't let it warm up. Don't let it get hot at all, because then you're going to lose it.
Did the recent change?
And once you open it, how fast do you have to drink it right away once you open it? But I mean, like, can you save it? Like, if you don't finish it, what do you do with that?
Yeah,
we can. Cork things that they have now. Do they work?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
they do.
We recommend like no more than 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can keep drinking it. It's never going to go poison, but you're going to notice a difference in the flavor. It's going to, some of the alcohol is going to start to evaporate. You're going to lose like the fruit flavors. So
and it'll eventually turn to vinegar.
If you keep it long enough. But who keeps a bottle of wine open anyway for like more than 3 days?
Yeah, I don't
Just
like people that do that. Just drink it. Once you open it, it should be done that night.
Yes, I agree with you.
Now, did the recent changes in like the social and political climate like directly reflect like uptick in sales?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
So you know, we had like the first like blackout Tuesday, and I think we found out about it like the night before, maybe at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and we called everybody up at the company, and we're like, tomorrow's not going to be about us. Like, let's try and shine a light on the Black vintner community. And so we had already been working on a list of like trying to find just a list of like Black-owned like vintners. It was hard to find. So at the beginning of last year, we started putting this list together, mainly because we were trying to, if people are interested in going national with their company, if they want to go to mass retail, we wanted to try and help people figure that out, because normally we're the only Black-owned and also woman-owned privately held company when you go to like large,
the larger accounts.
And so we put out this list of like 67 that we had at the time on Blackout Tuesday, and we were just like told everybody just support Black vintners, and that thing went viral, and like a large percentage of like our Black vintner community sold out immediately, like had wine club subscriptions for like up to 2 years. We saw like a huge uptick in our business, but definitely like during that time last year. And also too, a lot of people are just like, corporations like, what's my Black strategy? So they're trying to figure out how they can start to place Black-owned companies, outside of the wine industry too, right, on their shelves, which you just have to think about, like, are they in this for the long term? It's obviously reactionary.
We'll but the other thing too is like with all of that went on last year, consumers really had a voice. So like when we shared all of those wineries and people were like, okay, maybe they had heard of like a handful of Black-owned wine companies, and they found out there's all these other ones. Consumers are really picking up the phone and, talking to their stores and to the retailers and like demanding it on social media. Like, we want to see these Black-owned brands in the stores. And so the stores were like, oh, crap. So they're trying to figure out like how they can get this stuff into the stores. And it made a huge difference. Consumer demand is so much more effective for brands than us going in and trying to prove that there is consumer demand.
And I think for us too, it like highlighted like as a community, we are so powerful. We can decide where to put our money, and like we put out this one post, like just giving basic instructions on like, this is what you can do. Go into your store and tell them that you want these Black-owned brands. And we actually got this email from this really large corporation, like saying like these are the ways of working, because they thought that we had this like crazy sales force of like thousands of people going into their stores, like trying to sell in, and they were like, oh, this only happens corporately, like da da da. But we replied to them and said, these are just people. These are your customers
telling you what they want in your stores. You should listen.
And it's just like a really like great example, I think, for our entire community to be really conscious of where you spend your money and how you spend your money, and spending in like organizations and companies that, first of all, would they hire you if you applied for a job there? And then 2, businesses that are going to like reinvest into their community,
and that are a part of their community.
Yeah.
And you got to be intentional as a consumer too, like, because we love to show off white people's brands. You know what I mean? As a consumer, if you're drinking a Black product, like, tell people about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
How was the pandemic? Because you touched on it a little bit. I know because a lot of people drank during the pandemic.
Yes.
So I know business was booming, but were you able to supply the demand?
We were. Fortunate for us when the pandemic hit, because of the size of our company, we have a lot of growers. We have a lot of wine in progress and stuff. So we were able to supply the demand, and we were ready for it and had the infrastructure for it. One thing that we didn't anticipate, though, was where we thought our e-commerce business was going to be, like in 3 years, like happened in like 60 days.
It did.
You know,
it did.
So that kind of like opened our eyes up to like the potential, because wine industry is pretty old school. Like where every other industry has advanced, like direct to consumer, the wine industry hasn't advanced in the same like leaps and bounds. But as a result of the success that we had last year, like in 2019, with the launch of like our She, we have another brand called She Can. By McBride Sisters.
By the way, very, very clever and cute name too. She Can. I get it.
And like we really created this, like it was for us, it was three things. It was like our innovation. So it's putting like premium bottled wine in a can, which took us a while to figure out.
We have been obsessed about that idea for years, but the can technology wasn't quite there yet to make sure that our wine, quality was maintained.
And then paying homage to our moms, and then but also to we started a professional development fund for women. So the first year we awarded $40,000 in scholarships to women in the wine and spirits industry.
Dope.
And then last year we saw the figure in May of the 1.1 Black-owned businesses. I think 51% were saying, by May that they were going to have to shutter for good, and only 4% got PPP.
Yeah, 95% were denied the federal funding.
And so we were just like, that's crazy. So we decided to specifically focus on Black women entrepreneurs. And we partnered with Morgan Stanley and with Silicon Valley Bank, and we awarded $300,000 to 30 women, Black-owned businesses that before COVID were super healthy. They were, they were doing well. They'd been in business, but just like, and then we also partnered with Facebook that created this whole mentorship, leadership program, and basically community. Because when you're an entrepreneur, like it can be pretty lonely, and I think especially for Black women, like you need community to like try and just have somebody to talk to about like what you're going through, the challenges of being an entrepreneur.
Because we didn't want to just, each of the women got a $10,000 cash grant for their business, but we didn't want, money is great, right? But it's like we wanted to be able to help make connections and provide services to help their businesses sustain and thrive, and to help them as owners to continue to grow and become a part of this community. So we brought in additional partners that can help these women to advance themselves as entrepreneurs and as owners in their businesses.
Yeah, one of the things that we learned too, like in this process of being entrepreneurs, is like when we look at people around us, just having access to information is critical and like so key. And like if you're like in a family where there's like already like you already have a family-owned business, there's just so much that gets passed on subconsciously to the kids growing up in that, and consciously, that like if you come from a family where that's not the case, it's like you're just at a disadvantage. You might have all the right things it takes, but so for Robin and I, it was really important to just like give those women like access to as much information as they can to be successful and support,
and support services,
support them.
How can somebody apply to the She Can Fund now? Or is it an application process?
It is an application. So applications open on May 3rd, and you can go onto our website on McBrideSisters.com, and we have a whole area about the fund, and there'll be a link there as soon as the applications open up.
I wanted to ask y'all too, because y'all were talking about other Black brands. Have you seen a growth in the Black presence in the wine industry? Because I only know two. I know y'all, and I know Brown. I think it
Brown
is.
family. Yeah. There's like, and that's the thing. There's quite a few. There's actually 100 and something that we found now.
Wow.
Last year we learned that there was 67, but we also knew of like a handful, like maybe a dozen or so makers and families that we were familiar with. But with sort of this change in tide and this change in consumer interest and retailers' interest in Black-owned brands, there are many, right, that are at the forefront now, and it's for us. It's like it's amazing. We never wanted to be the only ones that are national retail. We wanted to have a whole category that showcases diversity in wine because we know it's there. Consumers didn't know it's there.
Yeah, and I just feel like there's so much space for entrepreneurs and makers and like wine and spirits. Just because like we're just the biggest believers in like diversity of thought, for the purpose of like you come from a different background, and you're just going to approach something differently. If you have the same people doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same thing. And so I think spaces for people of color in particular, all these spaces where you don't see us, you know, just in terms of culture and everything that we do, you know, we excel.
Black
and so,
people are culture makers, right?
You know,
so,
and
we
so,
control the cool.
Yeah, you know, and so like we're all these like, you know, categories and sectors where you don't see us. Those are the biggest opportunities for us to come in and really lead and, you know, do things that are disruptive and exciting and are just going to advance that whole sector.
How does it work? Is it like the liquor business where, like, say, like an LVMH came in to partner with Jay-Z on his champagne? Is it like that in wine too?
That does happen.
Okay.
Yeah, it absolutely does happen. I mean, it's still the alcohol business, right, between spirits and wine, but there are definitely globally like really big players that own lots of different brands. They create lots of different brands. They acquire brands and companies. That's absolutely a part of our business as well. And I think, you know, what is the number now? Percentage, like 70 or 80% of the wines that you see on the shelves are actually owned by like 3 companies.
Wow. Have they approached y'all yet?
People come around. Yeah.
You're not ready to do that?
Nope.
Never?
No.
Never say never, but you know.
Never say never. But that one's the thing that's tricky. So like Black Girl Magic. So as we, you know, are approached or people have conversations with us for Andréa and I, it's really difficult to see like who would we ever be okay with owning that brand.
Because we're
that
stewards.
Name.
We're stewards of Black Girl Magic.
Yeah.
We don't own Black Girl Magic. And so, and then obviously everything that we do, like, you know, you look at our company, who we hire, you know, the investment fund, you know, I don't know.
All of those things. Who would ever take care of that brand?
I get what you're saying.
The meaning behind those words, the way that we do, right? So no corporation, I don't think, could do that.
Even if y'all retained majority ownership?
Oh, well, if we retain majority ownership, that's a different story. Yeah.
Let me get out of y'all business.
I know, right? I was like, we're still not doing it right now. You're going to make people think like the wrong thing. But
what are some of the health benefits of wine?
Resveratrol.
You know, technically we're not allowed to say there are any.
Oh, I didn't know that, really.
Right. But however, people...
Doctors say that, though.
What's that? Well, because doctors aren't licensed alcohol companies. So, but there are conversations about specifically around red wine and some of the qualities that come from red wine has contact with the grape skins, right? And so there's said to be some benefits there in terms of heart health, lowering cholesterol, things like that. So, you know, people find it beneficial in a lot of ways. We cannot say go drink wine, it'll make you healthier. That's not
just
lawful
to clarify.
for us. Our compliance people are listening. But
it's so interesting. You guys have these different standards of what you can't say. Like even talking about, well, when's the first time you had a drink? At what age? You have to be so much more cautious.
This industry is so highly regulated. It's very easy for us to do something that they won't like. So.
And they can't wait to.
Yeah, we don't want to chat.
They're watching.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
No, they're right out there.
I got 2 more questions. One, do y'all have to stomp on grapes? Is that a real thing?
You do not have to do that, but that is a real thing.
Okay.
Historically, that's how grapes were made, and people still do it. It's really more like part of a harvest festival or kind of for fun. But it is effective. It does work, and you absolutely can make wine by stomping on the grapes.
And we make millions.
I always thought that was gross.
Of wine.
It seems pretty gross to me too. I don't like the idea of people's feet being in my drinks, but
might add to the flavor.
It may add a flavor, but yeah. So for the amount of wine that we make, there's not enough feet to stomp those. So people do it.
It's a good workout.
Yeah.
And we always tell people to support Black businesses. How can Black-owned businesses pay it forward and pour back into the Black community, like y'all are doing with like the She Can Fund and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think a big one is if you have your own business and you know you are having any kind of success or you have learnings, is become a mentor to other people who are looking to own businesses or even thinking about starting a career or have an idea. Like we are contacted a lot and we do a lot of mentoring with people like, I'm really passionate about this, but I don't know if I can turn it into a business or what should I think about. I just think it's so very important to share your experience, your learning, your knowledge with anybody else because, Black ownership is we feel is very important, right? And so we want to be able to lend, whatever we've learned. Andréa, unfortunately, and we say that because unfortunately for us, at the time when we started our business in wine, we really couldn't find anyone Black or women really who we could, go to for advice and that could help us kind of along the way and help with some of those key decision points that we found ourselves in. And we absolutely did a lot of things the wrong way or not the best way, but really because we just didn't have advice. It's fine. That's part of our story. But we don't think everyone should have to do that. You should be able to build a community and business and be able to have some folks that have your back and can give you some good advice.
And then I think like simple things too is like we're super conscious about who we buy our paper from and, making sure that like operationally, whatever your business in terms of the vendors you're buying from or whatever you're doing, that you're like it's people of color, because collectively that's going to go a really long way if we all do that. So just being really conscious about agencies that you work with, like products you're buying, make sure, and it takes a little bit of time to like do the research, but it's obviously critically important.
Yeah,
absolutely. We appreciate you guys for joining us, and make sure you go support.
What y'all doing is dope. And I mean, I got 3 daughters, so it's just ill to see like the McBride sisters. I literally was just telling because I always tell one of my daughters, why do I call you Planet? I call her Planet and then her name. She said, because the world is mine. And then my younger daughter goes, the world is mine too. And I'm like, the world is both of y'all. Y'all can take over the world together. Yeah. So it's just dope to see y'all collectively moving as a unit like that.
And for us, it's like, our daddy grew up in the South and picked cotton. Our family are sharecroppers and then obviously go into slavery. So it's the fact that now we're doing this, it's obviously not just for us, and super special. So we have so much gratitude for everybody that purchases our wine and supports. And so we have to show that gratitude back. And support our community.
You can't tell Annie Mae nothing, our auntie in Alabama. The family name is on a bottle of wine. Don't you walk through her door, she's got our pictures. Look at my nieces. Like there's just a huge sense of pride, particularly for our family coming from Alabama and the Deep South and all of that history. To have the family name on a bottle of wine is a big deal.
That's big.
All right. Well,
so how can they buy it? Just go to
Go to our website.
It's everywhere.
First of all, everywhere. But if you go to our website, you can plug in a zip code and you'll see the stores near you, and you can purchase from our website also.
All right.
And if your store doesn't have it, tell them to get it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
right. And be loud about it.
Yeah.
Well, it's the McBride sisters. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning. Thank you, guys.
Thank you
guys.
So much.